Marriage is supposed to be a partnership, but somewhere along the line, ours became a battlefield. Sarah and I had been married for 12 years, and at one point, I truly believed we were happy. We had built a life together, a modest home, shared dreams, and countless memories. But looking back now, I realize how many signs I ignored, how many warnings I brushed off as minor issues. It started small, as these things often do. Sarah became less communicative, more critical. Her enthusiasm for the little things we used to enjoy together faded. At first, I chalked it up to stress or routine, something every couple goes through after years together. But as time went on, her dissatisfaction became impossible to ignore. She would make snide comments about my job, my hobbies, even my friends. Then came the arguments about money. Sarah had always loved the finer things in life, but I thought we were on the same page about living within our means. It wasn't until I started noticing discrepancies in our accounts that I realized how far off that assumption had been. At first, it was small purchases, expensive dinners out with friends, new designer bags, and spa trips. But soon, the amounts grew larger. I discovered she had opened multiple credit cards in our names and maxed them out. Worse, she had drained our joint savings account, money we had been putting away for years to buy a new home. When I confronted her, hoping for an explanation or even an apology, she didn't even try to deny it. Instead, she turned the blame on me. "If you were a better provider, I wouldn't have to do this," she snapped. That was the moment something inside me broke. For years, I had tried to be understanding, patient, and supportive. But this wasn't a partnership anymore. It was a sinking ship, and I was the only one trying to keep it afloat. "I want a divorce," I said, my voice steady but resolute. Her reaction wasn't what I expected. No tears, no pleading, just a cold, calculating smile. "You'll regret this," she said. Sarah wasted no time turning my life upside down. Within days of me filing for divorce, she had hired one of the most aggressive divorce attorneys in town. Her demands were outrageous: full ownership of our house, my car, half of my business, and monthly alimony payments that would cripple me financially. She didn't stop there. Sarah began spreading lies to anyone who would listen, painting me as an ungrateful husband who had abandoned her after years of selfless devotion. She told her friends, her family, even some of my colleagues that I was emotionally abusive and that the divorce was entirely my fault. At first, I was overwhelmed. It felt like I was being attacked from all sides, my character and integrity under siege. But as the initial shock wore off, I realized I had to fight back. I wasn't going to let her destroy everything I had worked for. I hired one of the best divorce attorneys I could afford, someone with a reputation for taking on high-conflict cases. "We'll need to build a strong case," she told me. "Document everything, every text, every email, every transaction, and prepare for a fight." I took her advice to heart. I began combing through years of financial records, emails, and text messages, gathering evidence of Sarah's reckless spending and manipulative behavior. I also started reaching out to mutual friends, subtly setting the record straight about the lies she had been spreading. But I knew that wouldn't be enough. Sarah was cunning, and she had a knack for twisting the truth. That's when my lawyer suggested hiring a private investigator. The private investigator turned out to be worth every penny. Within weeks, they uncovered a trail of deceit that even I hadn't fully anticipated. The first bombshell was Sarah's financial mismanagement. She had been funneling money from our joint accounts into a series of shady investments, most of which had failed spectacularly. But the spending didn't stop there. She had also been using our money to fund a lifestyle far beyond our means: expensive vacations, luxury goods, and extravagant nights out with her friends. Then came the affair. It wasn't a complete shock. I had suspected for months that there was someone else. But seeing the evidence laid out in front of me was like a punch to the gut. The man, Greg, wasn't just a casual fling. He was someone Sarah had been seeing for over a year, a colleague from one of her so-called business trips. The PI provided photos of them together, receipts for romantic getaways, and even text messages that left no room for doubt. Sarah had been using our money to fund her affair, paying for everything from hotel rooms to gifts for Greg. I was furious, but I knew I had to stay calm. Confronting her would only give her the opportunity to twist the narrative. Instead, I handed everything over to my lawyer, who assured me we now had a significant advantage. The courtroom was packed on the day of our first hearing. Sarah arrived with her lawyer, exuding confidence and playing the role of the victim to perfection. She testified about how I had emotionally abandoned her and how she had no choice but to file for such extensive demands to secure her future. Her performance was convincing. She even managed to squeeze out a few tears as she described the sacrifices she had made for our marriage. I could see the judge listening attentively, and for a moment, I worried that her manipulation might actually work. Then it was our turn. My lawyer began by presenting the evidence we had gathered: photos, receipts, text messages, and financial records. It was a masterclass in dismantling Sarah's narrative. The courtroom was silent as the judge reviewed the evidence. Sarah's lawyer tried to object, but the damage was done. The affair, the financial misconduct, the lies, it was all laid bare for everyone to see. When the judge finally spoke, their tone was stern. Sarah's claims for alimony were dismissed outright, and she was ordered to repay a portion of the money she had taken from our accounts. She was also denied any claim to my business, which was ruled as entirely my property. As we left the courtroom, I caught a glimpse of Sarah's face. The confidence she had walked in with was gone, replaced by a mixture of anger and humiliation. The aftermath of the court decision was bittersweet. While I had won the legal battle, the emotional toll was undeniable. Sarah's attempts to ruin me had left scars on my reputation, my finances, and my trust in people. But for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. I poured my energy into rebuilding my life. My business, which had suffered during the divorce proceedings, became my top priority. I worked long hours, re-establishing connections with clients and regaining the momentum I had lost. Slowly but surely, things started to stabilize. Friends and family who had distanced themselves during the drama began reaching out again. Many of them apologized, admitting they had believed Sarah's lies. While it was difficult to forgive some of them, I realized that holding on to resentment would only hinder my progress. But Sarah wasn't done. Even after losing in court, she continued to spread rumors about me. She told anyone who would listen that the court had been biased, that I had manipulated the system, and that she was the true victim. It was frustrating, but I decided not to engage. Her words couldn't hurt me anymore, not when the truth was on my side. I also discovered that Greg, the man she had been having an affair with, had ended things with her shortly after the court decision. Apparently, he didn't want to be tied to someone with so much baggage. Sarah, once so confident and untouchable, was now facing the consequences of her actions alone. Though I had tried to move on, there was a lingering sense of injustice. Sarah had attempted to destroy my life, and while she had failed, the damage she caused couldn't be undone. I didn't want revenge for the sake of revenge. I wanted closure, a way to ensure she couldn't pull the same manipulative tactics on someone else. With my lawyer's guidance, I pursued legal action to recover more of the money Sarah had squandered during our marriage. This time, the focus was on her hidden debts and fraudulent financial activities. It was a tedious process, involving audits, subpoenas, and countless meetings. While this unfolded, I decided to take a more personal approach to closure. I began sharing my side of the story with those who had been misled by Sarah. At first, I was hesitant, afraid of coming across as bitter or vindictive. But the response was overwhelmingly supportive. Many people thanked me for clearing the air, and some even apologized for believing her lies. Eventually, I received word that Sarah was struggling financially. Her debts had caught up with her, and without Greg's support or the alimony she had counted on, she was forced to sell many of her possessions. Part of me felt sorry for her, but I reminded myself that she had made her bed. 3 months after the court ruling, I felt like a different person. The weight of the past had started to lift, replaced by a sense of hope and possibility. I had begun exploring hobbies I had neglected during my marriage, traveling, hiking, and even learning to play the guitar. My business was thriving again, and I had made it a point to give back to the community that had supported me through the tough times. I started mentoring young entrepreneurs, sharing the lessons I had learned about resilience and perseverance. As for Sarah, I heard through mutual acquaintances that she had moved out of town. Some said she was living with a relative, trying to get back on her feet. Others claimed she was looking for a new partner to save her. I didn't care either way. She was no longer my problem. For the first time in years, I felt free. Free from the toxicity, the lies, and the constant feeling of not being enough. I was ready to start a new chapter, one where my happiness wasn't dependent on anyone else. It's been 3 months since I last thought about Sarah. Life has been good, better than I ever imagined it could be. The legal battles are finally behind me, and I've been focusing on building a future that's entirely my own. Recently, I started dating someone new. Her name is Emily, and she's everything Sarah wasn't: kind, genuine, and supportive. We're taking things slow, but for the first time in a long time, I feel excited about the possibilities. I also received a final update from my lawyer. The legal action we took to recover the funds Sarah misused was successful. While I won't see all of the money returned, the judgment ensures she'll be held accountable for her actions. Knowing that justice was served is enough for me. Looking back, I realize how much I've grown through this experience. It wasn't easy, and there were times when I thought I wouldn't make it through. But I've come out out the other side stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever to live life on my terms. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that you can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond. And sometimes, the best revenge is simply moving on and thriving.